Hello and welcome to Kev's English Podcast, Real English every week with your host Kev Dean. Hello and welcome to Kev's English Podcast, Real English every week with your host Kev Dean.
Hello, it's Kev here again with Kev's English Podcast. I'm English native. It should be number 35, I think. Anyway, welcome. The English Native Podcast. This is where we dive into all things English language learning and do other general topics, etc. But as I mentioned on my last couple of episodes, recently I've had many new students on italki, and mostly for IELTS. This is kind of strange. I usually have a mixture. I have people for OET, had one guy for TOEFL. But recently, like I say, everybody's been asking about the IELTS test. So we're going to take a look at an interesting topic, IELTS and AI, artificial intelligence, which is a bit of a misnomer because it's not intelligent. It might be artificial, but it's certainly not intelligent. It's just an algorithm that searches the internet. And if you don't ask it the right questions, you'll get the wrong answer. So keep that in mind. Anyway, there's a few things to talk about. So if you're getting ready for IELTS, you've probably wondered about tools like ChatGPT or a Grammarly, say, could supercharge your study sessions, but is it all smooth sailing, to use an idiom? Are there hidden reefs? Well, stick around, you'll wait and see, and you'll find out. Things to think about, pros and cons, etc. So, imagine you're prepping for your IELTS exam, and you've written an essay, and you want some feedback. You want instant feedback. Sounds good, eh? Well, that's what AI can do. But is it too good to be true? Well, today I'm going to tell you and give you some examples of why you can use it, but you need to be very circumspect how you do so. There's a few websites nowadays that offer AI feedback. I mean, I've just started offering this as a service myself, but mine is not all artificial. I'm the programmer, if you want to call it that, of the tool. I know what questions to ask, and I know how to tell it what to do. And on a podcast, I can't really show you any examples. Maybe I'll make a video and put it on my channel, maybe show you how that kind of works. But, well, I'll briefly explain. So what I've been doing, and I tried this in the last week. So what I do now, when students come for IELTS speaking practice on italki, I make a recording of a session with their permission, of course. I ask them, can I do a recording when I go through a complete IELTS practice test? Just ask for questions, get their answers. Then I transcribe the audio using an interesting bit of software that I found. And then I run it through some AI software which I've pre-programmed with the criteria and some examples and etc. So what I can do now, I can send students a personalized transcript of their exact wording of how I answered the questions, with some scoring for each question according to the criteria, and suggestions for rewording to make it more natural and native-like. And the students I've done this for so far seem to think this is really good. And I've been doing the same thing for writing. I've just started doing that. I usually just make corrections, but I've started using a new tool I've developed that goes through all the criteria: task response, task achievement, cohesion, coherence, etc. Anyway, if you want to know more, contact me on iTalki. So let's get on. So I imagine most of you might know what IELTS is, International English Language Testing System. You've got listening, reading, writing, speaking components, your scores from 0 to 9, and if you want to work abroad, or for most of you to study, you usually need at least 6.5, maybe 7, maybe higher, depending if it's a bachelor's or a master's, etc. Now, where does artificial intelligence come in? So a lot of my students in the last 5-6 weeks, they've all been contacting me and they've all been getting 5.5 or 6. Every one of them, 5.5, 6, 5.5, 6 for writing and speaking, or speaking and writing. And when I've been talking to them and analysing their writings, I can see why, because they keep making the same mistakes again and again. Now, I won't explain this episode before, or 1 or 2 episodes before this. I explained exactly what that was. I made a video where I showed some of the samples, and actually I've got a new video which I'm going to load up probably tomorrow now, where I'll go into some actual examples of sentences you should really avoid. So you've got ChatGPT for writing feedback, and a Gabble AI, you can get some scores and so on. It's okay to some extent. So what are the pros? Well, personalized learning. AI adapts to your level, focuses on your weak spots. That is, of course, if you give it the right prompt, vocab, grammar, etc. You get instant feedback. You don't have to wait. A lot of people do it because it's free. That's it. They think, I don't need an actual tutor, ex-examiner who knows how the exam works and can give me some personalized feedback and tell me what I'm doing wrong or what I'm doing right. I don't need that. I can just go to ChatGPT or DeepSeek, a Chinese version, or Grok on X, used to be Twitter. I've been looking at all 3 of those to try and work out what's the best one, what's the most useful tool. So accessibility, most of these tools are free up to a point. You get a certain amount of questions and you've got to wait until it resets. But one big issue, AI is generic and it can be inaccurate. In fact, when you use it, if you look at the bottom of the screen, it actually says ChatGPT may be inaccurate, check your sources, or on DeepSeek it says the same thing. DeepSeek can be inaccurate, please check for, etc. So AI itself actually says it might get it wrong, So it might miss some. So if you haven't taught it what the criteria are, and if you haven't given it some examples, then a lot of it might correct your grammar and vocab, but that's it. It doesn't address task response, task achievement, how well you've answered the question. It just doesn't to do it. And a lot of the language. Now I found this especially in the speaking section. People have been giving me some very unnatural language and phrasing, and when I ask them why, they've got it from the internet or from artificial intelligence. So one problem is that students are overly reliant, and this is more for the writing section. They go straight to AI first, so there's no critical thinking. As I mentioned in my previous episodes about writing section, one of the main problems is people have no ideas. So if writing's communicating, just as the speaking section is, and you've got nothing to communicate because you don't have any ideas, and your essay is not going to be terribly good. So this is what lots of people do. They, instead of thinking through the question for themselves, they go straight to ChatGPT, type in the question, and immediately take the first answer as the answer. And that's it. So no critical thinking. So when you use AI first, you're not using your brain, you're not brainstorming, you're not organizing, you're not forming your own ideas, you're not building your mental muscles. IELTS examiners want your voice, your opinions, your reasons, your examples. If you use AI too much, especially in the speaking, and also for the writing, as you'll see in my video, which will be coming out tomorrow, you risk sounding robotic or unoriginal. And when you're writing, you've got all these memorized phrases. So for example, okay, I'll give you some real examples. I often hear things like, I think it is a very meaningful and memorable experience to watch the play with my friends because we can share the happiness together and it makes our relationship more closer. Now that question was from Cambridge 20, I think it was test 1. Talk about a film or a play you saw and you want your friends to watch it as well. I think it's very meaningful, memorable, blah, 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 blah. It sounds formal, but unnatural. Nobody actually speaks. They don't say it was a very meaningful and memorable experience. It's common in memorized essays or artificial intelligence, but it doesn't flow like natural speech. And a more natural way might be, watching a play with my friends was really fun because we got to enjoy the story together and it brought us closer. Isn't that better than saying, I think it is a very meaningful and memorable experience to watch a play with my friends because we can share the happiness together and it makes our relationship more closer? Share the happiness together? Is that really how you would speak if you were speaking to a friend? And I keep saying, like the examiners say, what they want you to do is, above all, to be natural. They want you to be natural, speak like native speakers speak. Think if you're talking to a friend in Chinese or Spanish, German. Well, I say Chinese because most of my students recently are Chinese. And I say, right, imagine you're talking to a friend. Say it in that way. Don't do this this overly formal stuff, right? Another one. The play is really attractive because it has a lot of interesting scenes and the actors perform very well. Well, really attractive isn't something that native speakers say. We would more likely say it was engaging or captivating. Actors perform very well. It's a bit robotic. It's a bit kind of plain. A native-like version might be, it was really engaging, especially because of the exciting scenes and how well the actors brought their characters to life. You could do that, or you could say like, it was really great play. I really enjoyed it. It had me on the edge of my seat. As an idiom, had me, it was really gripping, had me on the edge of my seat. I couldn't take my eyes off of the stage. Now that's what we might say if we were talking about a play, So if you're not careful, using memorized or artificial intelligence generated phrases, right, it makes your English sound very unnatural and stiff. And this can hurt your fluency and coherence, which are, key IELTS scoring criteria. So instead of using AI first, practice doing your own ideas in your own words, So don't go to AI first. Get it to check what you've said or written afterwards, but don't do it first. Now, okay, so what should we keep in mind? So, is AI good for your learning style? Well, it's okay, but you need human feedback. I was talking with, again, some of my students in this last week, and I said, how do you practice your speaking? And I say, I talk to myself. I said, yeah, but that's what homeless people and mental patients do. You don't speak to yourself. How are you going to get any feedback if you're talking to yourself? I told them, I said, look, I could learn some Chinese phrases, idiom sayings on the internet and repeat them back to you, right? But as a native, you'd immediately notice that something was not quite right in what I was saying. You'd immediately hear that's unnatural, a Chinese person wouldn't say that just sounds weird. And IELTS examiners and natives would do the same. That's it, we would do the same. So you need to be very, very careful. Don't overuse it, don't go to it first. Let me think, is there anything else? Because I've covered some of this in previous episodes and videos, and I don't want to repeat myself. I don't want to, danger of repetition. But it's like I say, people. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that does bring to light mind. So not necessarily artificial intelligence as such, but this is just like an aside. I was talking with somebody yesterday. This is a peculiarly Chinese thing, right? So what they were doing is I'd ask a question, I'd say something like, do you enjoy watching films and plays with your friends and so and so? And they would answer, yes, I enjoy watching films and plays with my friends because. And they were using the same structure to answer every question. So they basically repeat the question and say because, and then answer. And I said, okay, but is that natural? What we would do, or we would say, so I ask you, do you enjoy watching plays with your friends? So you say either yes or no, and explain why. So you say, oh yeah, absolutely. I really love sharing that experience. It's kind of like a shared thing. Me and my friends, we like to watch films together so we can talk about it afterwards. Or you say, well, no, not so much. I find it a bit of a distraction because everybody wants to talk and nobody's really watching, So that would be a more natural way to answer. Now, I'm not saying that AI gives that, but I did ask it a week or so back. I said, right, can you give me some native alternatives to these answers? And it gave me something like Charles Dickens might actually write. This ridiculous, over-the-top, too formal language. And I had to give it some examples. I had to say, look, right, that's not how natives speak. Do it like this, have a look at this, have a look at that. So I had to show it exactly what I wanted it to generate. Whereas I think one of the main things here is that lots of people don't do that. They just take what ChatGPT or DeepSeek says for granted. The first thing that it says, that's what they use. Maybe because it's easy, it's fast, accessible, we don't have to think. But thinking's good. I recommend it for everybody every day. It's pretty good. I try and do it constantly. Anyway, so I hope that's given you something about AI. Like I say, video, because I can't really read the phrases out. You'll have to see it. So check out my video that's probably coming tomorrow. And I'm going to show some particular phrases that AI has generated. And because it's like, right, examiners, teachers, us, we have read hundreds of essays. We've spoken to hundreds, if not thousands, of students, and we recognize certain phrases, certain language. When somebody writes something in an essay, I know where they've got it from because I've seen it 1,000 times, you know? So keep learning, use your brain, critical thinking, use AI to check what you've done or said, but don't go to it first. And if you do use it, make sure that you tell it specifically what you want it to do. Show it the criteria, show it some examples. Don't just ask it and rely on what it says. Because I've defeated ChatGPT on several occasions because I've tested it. I asked it a particular question, theological issues, and it said something. I said, but what about this? And it said, oh yes, I thought about that, Kev, blah, blah, blah. And what about that? And it admitted that it hadn't got everything. Now that's in part because maybe how I phrased the question, you know? So it's like I say, artificial intelligence is okay up to a point. It's not intelligent. It's not truly artificial intelligence. It's an algorithm that searches and compiles information from the internet. That's all it does. It's good as a useful tool. It's a bit like using a Google. That's it. It just searches the internet and provides you with information. But unless you specifically tell it what to do with that, or how to get it, or mention certain things, you're not gonna get it. The same as if you were speaking to an actual person. Anyway, that's enough for me for today. I don't want to be overly long. That's 20 minutes. That's a little bit much. So anyway, I'll see you later. Next episode, next weekend, more than likely, because I've been a little bit lax. But I did do 2 episodes last week, though. Anyway, I'll see you later. Bye for now. Links below, wherever. Feel free to contact me, etc., etc. You know the score. Okay, bye for now.